This is Gregg Smallwood, and you're listening to Into the Night, a Moon Knight podcast.
Yes, Looney listeners, welcome back. This is episode 145 of Into the Night, a Moon Knight podcast, the Moon Knight podcast. I am one of your High Priest of Khonshu, Rey, and with me for this episode, we are edging up towards 150. I have a very special guest, is Austen Sprake from the Trash Talk podcast. Austen, a big welcome to the show. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you very much for having me on this show.
Yeah,
Very excited to talk Moon Knight with you.
Oh, me too. I'm always keen to catch up with. I know we've been corresponding and chatting online. I know that you are a Moon Knight fan, so we'll get into that as well. Loonies, we are here for an Over the Moon, an arc review. So it is a waxing gibbous up in the sky if you have a look at it. And this show, I've started to kind of release it mid-ish week this week because I'm actually trying to avoid the full moons and the new moons because I don't want to do any gaming or toy reviews. So trying to angle it towards a comic book review. It's a waxing gibbous tonight if you have a look up into the night sky, and that means we are doing an arc review, and it will be tonight Vengeance of the Moon Knight, issues 7 and 8, which features none other than Deadpool. But before we get into any of that, I just wanted to a big welcome to Austen. Austen, how did you get into Moon Knight? Just off the bat straight away. I mean, we'll talk about your podcast a bit later on, but Moon Knight, the character itself, why did he appeal to you?
So for Moon Knight, I picked him up randomly at a comic book store when I was younger. There was like a 50% off section, and for whatever reason, I think it was the bottom was in it. Mm-hmm. And also I picked up, there was like an issue that went with it that was not a comic book issue, but it was kind of like a history of Moon Knight, and it kind of went over all of his allies, and kind of like, it was kind of perfect for me that I picked up because it went over, up to this point, the history of Moon Knight, his issues from the beginning till now, all the stuff that's happened to him, is all kind of told from his like narration, which was kind of like interesting. Mm-hmm. And I just found it, like, some people kind of use he's just Marvel's Batman, but I never saw that. For me, it was just really fascinating. His costume was really very unique.
Yes.
The white moon against usually the darkness around him in most of the comics. And I thought his the multiple personalities was interesting. Mm-hmm. Also, all the allies that he picked up along the way were all very unique. Even because there's, of course, a bunch of different writers for Moon Knight.
Yeah.
I started picking up different issues and comic book runs, and all of them were very unique. And I enjoyed seeing the different art styles and writing styles used for him. And I don't know, I just find him a very fascinating character. I don't really tend to like characters that are constantly dealing with like Thanos level threats.
Okay.
So he kind of appealed to me as like a ground level character.
Oh, yeah, there's certainly plenty to like and many different things to like about Moon Knight. Austen, I'm glad that you got it out of the way quick and early by mentioning that other guy in DC. I don't know, in case you don't know, we only allow the one reference in the show, so all the others any other references will be bleeped. Don't worry. It's not me. It's Khonshu. He wants that kind of stricken from this show. So yeah. Absolutely. Exactly what you say. There are a lot of touch points there that I'm sure many loonies identify with why they like Moon Knight. We'll get into, again, that a little bit more as to your fandom and how much you've kind of plumbed the depths. I think you've mentioned the bottom, which is a fantastic jumping off, a starting point, but there's just so much to Moon Knight, you know, before and after that. It's very exciting to chat, and it's actually very exciting to chat with you about this these issues from 2010, Vengeance of the Moon Knight. It's look, for some loonies, they love it. Other loonies, it is kind of polarizing. Other loonies don't really like it. I know one of friends of the show, Joey Mega Man Negliata, he's not too keen on it, but I do know a couple of other loonies. I'm going to call out loony from the community, Daryl Petaway. I know he loves Vengeance of the Moon Knight, so I hope we do it justice, loonies. Just a little bit more housekeeping before we get into a bit more chatting. I just wanted to, again, a huge thank you to our gracious patroonies. These are our loonies who are our Patreon members. Please check out our Patreon page as well and consider tossing some coin our way. It really does help to expand the show. I love doing this stuff and just needs a little bit more, I guess, funding and the sky's the limit. We can do a lot more. So as a patroonie, you'd get credits mentioned on the show, as well as you'll get a co-producer or executive producer credited to each episode. Check it out. A big shout out to our current ones, Dustin, Wayne. Now, Austen, for the life of me, it's funny. I didn't realise how many J's there are here, how many J patroonies we have. But Dustin, Wayne, Justin, Joey, Jordan, Josh, and James, and Anthony. Thank you so much, guys. It's a mouthful. And I just wanted to mention also for the patroonies, and another incentive, our latest ITK monthly digest has just dropped. So if you want to know what's in store for the month of May, consider even $1 to become a patroonie, and you can get access to our monthly digest. It's well worth it, believe me. Also, as well, a big shout out to our sponsors, Hello Headphones, empowering gamers to play at their best. So thank you one and all. Thank you sponsors. Thank you patroonies. Right, Austen. Well, okay, we got a little bit about your experience with Moon Knight. Now, your podcast, Trash Talk Podcast, you mentioned to me as well, is primarily a film, and is it TV shows as well?
Yeah, we cover film, TV shows, but we also branch out and do an episode once in a while about either gaming or comics. Nice.
No doubt, I guess you're waiting on tenterhooks for the Moon Knight TV show, which is probably been pushed back.
Yeah, probably going to be pushed back to like 2022 at least, unfortunately. Yeah, but yeah, I'm very excited.
And you mentioned also, so gaming, but also you do the odd comic book review as well. So it's great to have you on here to talk comics. You mentioned in an episode to drop this coming weekend, it will be on The Goon, right?
Yep. So all of our podcast episodes, we always have a comic book of the week at the end where I go over a current comic that I'm reading that's pretty good. Mm-hmm. But sometimes we do a whole episode that we cover a comic book run, and we're doing The Goon this week, which I'm excited for because it's one of my favorite runs by Eric Powell.
Okay. Well, actually, that's a good segue. And just apart from The Goon, what are you currently reading? What's on your reading list?
So recently I just finished season 1 and 2 of Injustice, which I really enjoyed, and that will segue later into who I think should write the next Moon Knight issue runs.
Nice.
But I've also been reading 5 Ghosts, which unfortunately was kind of canceled a little bit early before it finished, but it's really, really good. It basically follows this Indiana Jones type character who goes out looking for treasure, but he has the power of 5 different ghosts that he can control. He can take the aspects of to apply to him. Like he is like a detective one, an archer one, a wizard, and he can gain their powers for a little bit. It's really a fun, and it's kind of like a retro 60s looking comic.
Oh, that sounds pretty cool. I'm sorry, you'll have to excuse me, Austen, there while I was looking down. I'm just writing this down for our show notes. So 5 Ghosts, who's the publisher and who writes it?
That is Image, and cool. I forget who wrote it.
Okay, no worries. Yeah, no worries.
Yeah, I've been reading a lot of Image comics recently.
Oh, they are.
Nail Lighter, The Goon, and 5 Ghosts.
Nice. Is The Goon, is that Image, is it?
Oh, nope. No, you're right. That is Dark Horse.
Dark Horse, yeah, okay. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, it is still independent, but yeah, okay, cool. Yeah, nice one. And I might as well ask you now then, as you said, it's a nice segue. So, Injustice, am I thinking, is it Tom Taylor? You're
Yep, Tom Taylor.
Yeah, fellow Australian. So, nice choice there, Austen. Nice choice. Look, I've read Tom Taylor from X-Men Red. Only a few of it. Like, he had a 12-issue run, X-Men Red. That was pretty good. And believe it or not, I've watched a bit of The Deep. It's like a kid's cartoon, which was created by Tom Taylor and kind of he's a, I guess, showrunner or main writer. But yeah, no, I like his stuff. He's pretty cool. I was fortunate enough to chat with him on Free Comic Book Day. I think it was a couple of years ago now. But yeah, cool, excellent. And why? Sorry, why Tom Taylor? Do you think? Why do you like him?
So for me, with Injustice, when I picked it up after playing the game, so I just figured it would be kind of like a cash in on the games. But it was way, in terms of plot and story, it was way better than the games. And what fascinated me was how he handled so many different characters within this run, and mostly the dialogue. The dialogue was one of the best I've seen in a superhero comic in a long time, which is another reason why I would like him to take over a Moon Knight one at some point, because I was just blown away by his writing in terms of handling this insane story where so many characters are in play, also his creative use of dialogue.
Actually, that's a good point as well, because if he does have a good handle on characterizations and voicings, you're talking about Moon Knight with all the different identities. I think one of the most important things is to distinguish the identities between, Mark Spector, Stephen Grant, Jake Lockley, and not have them just as your generic, kind of cabbie or billionaire. Exactly. That'll be good, I think. Do you reckon he'll do a Mr. Knight or a Moon Knight? Well, actually, can I ask? Do you have a favourite, Mr. Knight, or do you have or do you like the caped, hooded fella?
Yeah. So, I've preferred the cape in terms of look, visual style. I just love that look in the costume. It just looks so good on page. I actually really enjoyed it in this run. Vengeance of Moon Knight, but recently I've been reading some with Mr. Knight in it, and comparing all the comics I've read with the cape and the ones I've read with Mr. Knight, especially the Jeff Lemire run and Warren Ellis, I think the writing has been better in what I've read, at least with Mr. Knight in it. So I guess a little bit of both.
Yeah, he's certainly got more of a modern take to it. If you haven't read, I'm not sure if you have or haven't, Austen read the Doug Mensch run, which is the classic 80s run. I urge you to. It's really cool. It's a bit, I guess you can say, a bit dated by today's standards. But what Mensch does, he just builds this kind of tone, if anything, for Moon Knight and his world. And I think his voicings are quite subtle with Moon Knight. I mean, like, you get these days, one of my pet peeves is you have Moon Knight. I'll bring it again to that example of Damnation, which was a crossover. You have him almost like a Deadpool-esque kind of character, which is interesting when we get to this comic. I'd love to get into this. I love the parallels and the contrast between Deadpool and Moon Knight in these two issues that we do. But in some of the modern runs, he tends to have a bit more of a flippant, almost like a Spidey, Deadpool kind of humour, which is, to me, is not... in the Volume 1 run, back in the 80s, Moon Knight did have a humour, but it was a lot more... I think it was drier, and it was... sometimes it was a bit corny, but he wasn't as wacky as he seems to be sometimes portrayed here. And one of the things that I loved about Mr. Knight, especially in the Ellis run, was how he's depicted. There was a dark humour to him in that, but if anything, he was actually more scary than funny in the Ellis run.
Yeah, 100% agree on that. Some of the comics where it's kind of due to lazy writing, they just go, "Oh, we have all these adventures here, so let's make the one that makes the weird jokes. We'll just make that Moon Knight because he's insane. Let's have him do that," and it just comes off as kind of like a lazy rip off of Deadpool sometimes.
Yeah, it's easy to just pigeonhole him or like just standardize him as the typical smart aleck. But yeah, I think there's a lot more to it than that. Anyway, Austen, I've kind of skipped it, but I want to get back to it. Trash Talk Podcast. So for listeners out there, if they haven't heard of you or haven't heard of the show, how would you describe it? Like, what's it all about? And when did it start?
Sure.
When did you guys start out?
So we started around a year and a half ago, and in Trash Talk Podcast, I guess for this podcast, people enjoy because we cover a lot of superhero-based movies and comics.
Nice.
We usually try to cross them over a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
So, recently we've been doing something where we will compare a animated movie, because there's a bunch of DC and some Marvel animated movies that are based off comics.
Mm-hmm.
And we try to contrast them between the comic book they're based off and the animated movie. But every week we have a new theme, be it a single or a couple movies, or a television series, or a comic book, or a video game, and we cover it for a whole episode. And it's called Trash Talk Podcast because we do it while drinking. We go into depths while breaking it down. We're not just shitting around and just being trash, but we do have a couple laughs and more than a couple beers. But yeah, at the end, we always have a comic book of the week, even if we didn't have a comic book themed episode, and a game of the week where I recommend a video game that we've been playing that's been really fun. Mm-hmm. And then sometimes we have like a movie debate section at the end of the podcast.
Cool.
And at the beginning of the podcast, we always open with a lot of movie podcasts have like a movie news section, so we kind of spice it up with a real news and fake news section where I present 4 pieces of ridiculous movie news, and Travis, my co-host, has to guess which one is the fake one. The
nice.
4 is fake. Yeah,
cool.
It's a fun podcast.
Nice. And look, and there's nothing wrong with a bit of a tipple as well. You'd be surprised what you can discover in literature or movies and stuff after a glass of wine or a pint of beer. So definitely kind of advocate that. Although drink responsibly, loonies. Anyway, awesome. So loonies, we'll have the descriptions. We'll have the links in the show notes as well. I'll ask Austen to give a little plug towards the end as well in our Spectacle about where you can contact him and stuff. But Trash Talk Podcast, it sounds pretty cool. And Austen, I know there are plenty of loonies. I mean, in this kind of whole geek culture thing, movies, gaming, comics, they all kind of intertwine with each other. So I'm sure that a lot of listeners will find a lot of entertaining stuff in your podcast.
Oh yeah, no. They should be able to find plenty. It is kind of, while we do cover a lot of movies, it's more of a geek podcast. Most of the time when we cover movies, it's comic book related in some shape or form.
Okay.
I'm sure they'll love it.
Well, I'm going to throw it out to you now. Give me your maybe top three comic book films. Do you have one?
Ooh.
Or yeah.
Top 3. I really enjoyed Logan. So perfect send off for Hugh Jackman.
Yep.
And Spider-Man to Spider-Verse is probably one of my top 5 movies of all time, not just superhero films.
Wow.
Just fantastic use of animation in that. And probably it's been a little bit since I've seen it, but The Dark Knight is fantastic in terms of cinematography and writing. So I guess those 3.
Actually, it reminded me as well, Austen, because that little look-see as well. But you are a filmmaker as well and a writer?
Yeah, so it's kind of difficult now, of course.
Yes, of course.
Because of the current world situation. But I spend a good amount of my time making short films, writing for different projects.
Awesome.
So, which is another reason why I wanted to start the Trash Talk podcast
Mm-hmm.
was to discuss movies because it's a really big passion for me.
Yeah. Have you ever done like short, like comic book films and stuff, or written anything?
I haven't shot any like comic book inspired ones. I've like thought of doing some kind of like Moon Knight short film, which has been done a couple of times. But the thing with that is that it's really hard to make, unless maybe if you do Mr. Knight, but it's really hard to take the look of Moon Knight and put that on screen and make it look good. It looks good on paper on a comic book, but not so much from what people have attempted at least on film.
It is hard
to do that.
Yeah, it is a hard translation, isn't it? As well, but there have been a few filmmakers that have been releasing stuff as well on YouTube, which we've had on the show as well. A little shout out to Caden Batera. He's one of the filmmakers, and also YouTube MCU, a band of young fellas there doing some work. They're very industrious. They keep on popping out some cool short films on their favourite characters. But it is hard, isn't it? Because what you see in the comic book medium, basically, it's if I can say static. I mean, you still get the sense of movement and stuff with it. You can really mould the styles, and basically, you know, things look cool because they're posed, and if you bring it into real life, I don't know, things just kind of lose their sheen as well. Nothing to take away with cosplayers, because I love cosplayers. There's some brilliant cosplayers out there, and they do marvelous work. But it is very hard, especially what I found with Moon Knight, with the not so much Mr. Knight, but with the hood and the cape, because you know how David Finch has that pointy front of the hood, which looks really cool. In real life, it's really hard to do, I think. It just flops, you know. Yeah,
it's hard to translate that costume and make it look really good.
Yeah, exactly.
For sure.
Anyway, Loonies, we look. I just had a little chat with Austen as well. We had a quick look for news. This is midweek. You know, nothing ever drops midweek as well, and this current global climate, nothing's actually ever happened. So I had a quick look for White Noise, nothing there, Loonies. But rest assured, we'll keep you updated with anything that does drop. I think the last thing I heard, Austen, was that I think we mentioned briefly everything's getting pushed back to 2022. So I guess keep your eyes peeled out for casting. I mean, that's the next big thing. We know Jeremy Slater is the showrunner for Moon Knight. We know Beau DeMayo is one of the writers now, one of the main writers. Now, I guess we've got to look for casting. And on the same token as well, Moon Knight titles. I've heard actually. I heard from a little shout out to Justicezilla from Twitter. He's kind of like my informant, so to speak. He let me know that the Avengers issue 33, which will kick off the Age of Khonshu, which was meant to be released in April, I think that's coming out towards the end of May now. So we're looking at May 20-something. So we got that to look forward to. Jason Aaron, Austen, you following the Avengers by any chance?
I'm not, but I'm going to have to check this run out when it eventually comes out.
Yeah, do you like a lot of Jason Aaron's stuff? Have you read much of his stuff?
Not a lot. Recently, I've been more diving into like Image and Dark Horse, like the indie companies.
Mm-hmm.
So besides Moon Knight, and the occasional DC comic,
Good.
I've been reading a lot of
you skirted around that pretty well. So.
Yeah, a little bit.
Actually, that's great. I'm feeling. I mean, that's great that the only like Marvel or the only couple of big two titles that you do follow is Moon Knight. So that's got to be.
And another, I guess, Marvel one that I still stay up to date with is Deadpool, which is actually perfect for the podcast.
Oh, perfect. Oh. I didn't know. This was just purely coincidence. So this is cool. Actually, it'd be great then. I'll be able to get some really good insight with you about Deadpool. So, okay, well, we've got no news or anything like that, so how about we'll swing to a quick ad break. You'll hear from a couple of our fellow collective affiliate members, and when we come back, I think, Austen, it's time to crack open the issues, and let's get into Vengeance of the Moon Knight, issues 7 and 8.
Sounds good, I'm excited.
Cool, we'll catch you on the other side of this.
Hey there everyone, I'd like to tell you about the YouTube channel I Am Your Target Demographic. If you're a fan of comics, we have plenty that you'll enjoy over there, including a series called Heroes Like Us that explores comic characters of all sorts of different identities. And we even have a series that defines words that are used in nerd culture that you may not know what they mean. So you can check us out by heading to YouTube and searching I Am Your Target Demographic, or look up IAYTD on any social media outlet.
Hey there. I'm sure you know about the Capes and Lunatics podcast, but have you heard about the Capes and Lunatics Sidekicks podcast? It's a fun home for classic and new reviews of just about everything. We have the Ultimate Spider-Cast, where we cover everything Spider-Man. The Quantum Zone, where we talk the classic Marvel character Quasar and do deep dives on the cosmic side of Marvel. We also have Comic Capers, where we cover everything old and new in comics. Could be anything, any company, any decade. And we also have our Media Mondays, where we cover some kind of TV show, be it a Arrowverse current hit, or our summer specials, where we do reviews of classic episodes of the Buffy the Vampire Slayer spinoff Angel. So, if you're a fan of pop culture and media, you should really check it out. And I promise you, you won't be disappointed.
Yes, welcome back, Looney listeners. You are listening to episode 145, or as they say in Dutch, 45, I think. Again, I'm still trying to learn. 145, I'm here with special guest, Austen Sprake from Trash Talk Podcast. How you going, Austen?
Oh, good. I'm excited to dive into this.
Yes, we are getting into it. Loonies, you have arrived at the Over the Moon arc review, thanks to a waxing Gibbous in the middle of the week. So, as usual, actually for listeners that aren't familiar, first-time listeners, what we do, Austen and I, is that we'll go through the credits where you can find it. We'll go through a bare bones, which is a synopsis, just to get you a bit of a rundown, just in case you don't know the issue. Then you can kind of be brought up to speed. And then we'll go into some aspects, which basically will be broken down into writing, art, themes, characterizations, references to any of the other runs. Look, Austin and I, we're just going to freeform it. We're just going to bounce around, say what we liked and what we hated about the issue. And, I don't have it in the prompt sheet, Austin. You're not privy to our fantastic rating system. I wanted to give a shout out to Konishu, the other High Priest of Konishu. His moon rating system, and we can do that. But since I haven't got it in the show notes, Austin, what we do is that we rate it with our moon rating system with the phases of the moon. So full moon, 10 out of 10, new moon, 0, half moon, you kind of get the gist. So we'll give it a rating towards the end. So what we have, as I mentioned, this is so fun. I can't wait to actually do this whole run. But anyway, Vengeance of the Moon Knight, issues 7 and 8. The arc is titled Killed, Not Dead. And it's available. Still in floppy if you can find it. I don't know about you, Austen, but finding Vengeance of the Moon Knight issues are very hard to come by, in Australia at least. Do you collect floppies, or are you a trade guy?
I try to collect I don't really collect the single issues that much. I usually try to get the whole run on a hard or soft cover. Sure,
yeah. And speaking of that, I will be reading it. Patronies can see I've got the old soft cover trade paperback, which is out of print, unfortunately. This is pretty hard to come by. I'm assuming there was a hardcover, maybe. I don't know. I've never come across it. I'd love to have it, but I don't know if that's available. So this is a little hard to come by, but I know there are Vengeance of the Moon Knight fans out there, so I know that you can follow along with us. This was published in June 2010, and what we have is a writer, Gregg Hurwitz. He's a great crime writer in his own right. Penciler, Eng Huat. and he also inks as well. We have colorist Dan Brown, and we have letter of EC Joe Caramagna for issue 7, and artist Eng Huat for issue 8 as a letterer as well. Editor Axel Alonso. So now, Austen, I think we're going to go to the bare bones. This is courtesy of Wiki. Would you please like to let the listeners know what has happened in issue 7?
Sure. So in issue 7, this is the bare bones. So one night, Marc receives intel that a hospital has set off their panic alarm as a suspicious person has entered. Marc quickly takes off. When Moon Knight arrives, a pizza slice is left at the door. The patients are alive and the staff have been rendered unconscious. When Marc knocks on the last door, Deadpool is hanging over a body looking to kill a comatose person. Marc throws a dart in the two battle in the room. Deadpool tries to explain that he's on a job to kill only the patient with his own security, but Moon Knight fights him away. When Marc returns to his lair, he looks up the comatose patient. Herman Goncharenko, a property development mogul responsible for displacing families and kidnapping children to force families to sell their land to him. That was Deadpool's hit. Marc feels guilty for his interference as he believes Deadpool may have been right in this scenario. Across town, Deadpool visits his employer, a mother of a kidnapped boy from Herman's henchmen, who still, they have his son, and she wants blood. Moon Knight later finds Deadpool. He won't let him murder Herman, but he still wants to find the kid. The two go their separate ways as Deadpool taunts Moon Knight to give into his urges. Marc receives word that one of Herman's shell companies owns an abandoned apartment. There, the henchmen are seen holding the child in a cage as Moon Knight lurks behind them.
A battle erupts and Moon Knight takes out the henchman. Just as the leader surrenders, Moon Knight is ready to brutally harm him, but the child watches on. Marc instead renders the man unconscious and frees the child from the cage. Authorities arrive and take the child to the hospital and apprehend the henchman. As Moon Knight looks upon from a distant roof, Deadpool kicks him off. They take their battle to a carnival in a local park as Deadpool is disappointed in Marc. Goncharenko and his men have been known to kill children, but Moon Knight is still on his righteous path. Marc, learning of Wilson's healing factor, decides to brutally chop him up in order to stop Deadpool. That evening, Marc comes to a fevered dream about Clarissa and quickly rushes to the hospital. Following a nurse in scrubs, she walks past security and guards to Goncharenko's room. It is Clarissa, since Deadpool never finished the job. Clarissa takes out a syringe full of cyanide. Confessing to Herman the pain he has caused her, she releases the cyanide into his IV drip. Just outside Herman's window, Moon Knight stands hovering as he has witnessed everything and refrained from acting. There you go. I only stumbled at the end there, Austen, so all right, I'm happy with that.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'm trying to still think of refrained. That's what they're trying to say. So whoever wrote this, not refrained, but refrained from acting. I was trying to find the word myself. Yeah. Anyway, so there you go, loonies. That was issues 7 and 8 in a nutshell. Actually, apart from that word at the end, very well kind of encapsulated. Now, before we get into any of this, Austen, overall impressions, what did you think of this holistically as issues 7 and 8?
I liked it. It was kind of like a side quest kind of thing. It wasn't like there was a ton of weight, but I thought it was a nice little run. I enjoyed it. Yeah. I enjoyed the art. I guess we'll get into that later, but I really enjoyed the art used here.
Oh, the art was fantastic, and I know a couple of episodes ago, 143, we went through, had some special guest hosts, and they did top 5 Moon Knight artists, and I think Anthony, if I remember correctly, pitched Tan Eng Huat as one of his favourites, and I can see why. He's pretty cool. I really enjoyed this as well. I think it's deceptively very simple. Like, I think Hurwitz just really distilled a particular point in it. But I think upon closer inspection, there's actually a lot going on to it. Whether or not it actually reaches its full potential, I don't know. But I found a lot of the themes actually quite interesting. So we'll get into some themes as well. But overall, I enjoyed it, and the art certainly helped. So, I mean, let's kick off. Austen, you said the artwork. What makes it kind of appealing to you? Let me grab some stuff out here.
Sure. So for me, what I've also with Moon Knight, for most of the Moon Knight comics I've read, what I really enjoy about the artists they've used is that most of them are very unique. One reason I haven't been reading as much superhero-based comics as I used to is that, and I'm kind of trying to develop my own comic on the side when I'm not working on movie stuff. So I've been in the process of looking for artists and stuff, and I've kind of grown a appreciation for the artists. And a lot of superhero comics are kind of like, I don't want to say generic, but it's not really super bold art styles.
Yeah.
But I really like this and some of the other Moon Knight ones because they aren't really afraid to go a little bit past just making a good looking, plain looking superhero comic book look.
Yes.
They make a unique visual style. And in this one, I really enjoyed the pencil work, but I also really liked the coloring that was used.
The color's great. Yeah.
So good.
Yeah, the color's great. And Moon Knight, I must say, looks total kick-ass in this.
He does.
He's got I don't know how you describe it. He's got like a glassy kind of look in his eyes. His costume, the carbonadium armor, absolutely brilliant as well. He's quite menacing. And Deadpool's done pretty well as well. Yeah, no, I really like the art as well. I think I'm trying to look at some of the... Because I had a thought of this when I was looking through. I can't find the exact example, but I was thinking, oh, that's an interesting choice that Eng Huat made with some of the panels that he's done. But I can't quite place my thing. He's got definitely enough detail on there as well, and his faces look pretty cool. I guess I'm looking at the panel layouts. There's not too much play here. There's a couple of overlapping stuff. There's a nice double page spread here of Moon Knight looking over Las Vegas. Is it Las Vegas? No, he's looking over the carnival place. Look at those colours there, Austen. That's awesome, isn't it?
Yeah,
it's
so
really
good.
Really cool.
Grab it, especially towards the end when they have that fight.
Yep.
And all the like that mirror place, the mirror room.
Yeah, the fun house or something.
Shattered, it's going all over the place. The colors used is incredible.
Yeah, I see. I didn't. Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Oh no, sorry. There's one moment here. Look, and again, Patroni's. You can probably see this, but for the podcasters, you probably can't. Podcast listeners. So this page here, Austen. I found actually that one. I found a little hard following as to what happened. So Moon Knight's hitting some crescent darts here, throwing some crescent darts, and then what happens there? Does Deadpool smash him through a mirror or something? Because then he goes flying through some glass. So I think there are some instances.
I was wondering that too.
Sorry?
Oh, I was just saying that I was wondering that too when I read it.
Yeah, so there are some
follow at points.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so the whole thing about the artist leading the eye. Sometimes I think what kind of misses it a little, and you kind of left, and that's something that you don't want to do, right? Because you want to keep the thing flowing. So when things become a little like, oh, what's happened? But other than that, I mean, that's a small quibble. I mean, most of this stuff is really cool. He's got a very strange way, like his faces. And I don't mean this in a terrible way, but sometimes his faces, they all have the kind of same kind of look to them.
Yeah.
God, like
I would say that.
Yeah, it's
the
just
my favorite part of it.
Yeah, I mean, it's just his style. But then again, you get this cool Moon Knight. But then again, you get this cool Moon Knight. Look at that.
Yeah, very cool.
Walking out
You
of...
should definitely show the panel where it's the end of issue 8, I believe, where bugs are about to like either kill or beat up the boy that's in the cage.
Oh, yeah,
and you
yeah,
see
yeah.
in the back coming towards them to beat them up.
Yes, because there's a full-on evil look on the end of 7 there. A full-on evil look on that guy. Oh god, I'm doing it in reverse, so I can't. Oh yeah.
There you go. Put it down. But, yep.
That's pretty cool. I loved it as well. I think the art was definitely more than serviceable. I think it was actually it added a lot to the comic. The fight scenes were, for the most part, were quite dynamic, as in, kind of fluid. I think the main takeaway for me, some of the splash pages, I felt were a little, that could have been done. Like, that's a whole splash page, and I get what.
Oh, yep.
I get what he's trying to do. That's kind of a big surprise when he kicks Moon Knight off the roof. But it's kind of like, if that's a splash page, it doesn't really, pop as much. It's just got Deadpool just leaning over the... Yeah. But, no, they're really cool. I totally enjoy this. With the writing, okay, so I want to kind of bounce to characterizations, and I'm going to try to lead the witness here, Austen. How did you think Marc, or how do you think Moon Knight was portrayed here by Hurwitz? Was it a decent interpretation, or how did you find it?
Yeah, I would say it was decent. For both Deadpool and Moon Knight, I thought the writing was fine or solid.
Yep.
I didn't really have that much of a problem with it. And I'll be interested to hear. I think you had some fans write in their opinions on the run, so I'll be kind of interested to hear what they thought.
Yeah, yeah.
But I thought the writing was like fine for both of them, but it wasn't like spectacular.
Yeah, yeah. I think the writing was, as I think I was mentioned, it's very economical. I think because you could easily burn. I burnt through these 2 issues pretty quickly. Like, there's not much in there. The dialogue is kind of, it's good. It's not overly verbose, which is cool, because you don't want them just talking for the sake of talking. So there's a lot of action in there as well. But it's very trimmed down, I think, the writing. So what I was mentioning about with the themes is that, so although you don't seem to get a lot of meat in the writing, what I found really interesting was what Hurwitz has done by placing Deadpool and Moon Knight together. And the main theme for this basically is, for me, is that Deadpool is a merc, right? And he's taking on this job, and he wants to carry it through because it's a job. This is what Moon Knight used to do as a merc, and what he doesn't do now. So it's kind of like Moon Knight facing his ghosts of the past. And I thought that was really cool. And then you have this blur because the guy, Goncharenko, is such a dick. It's like abominable. It's like, how could you? Like, Moon Knight, how could you be, we don't have a right to kill him. And rightly so, but like, you're thinking, he's killing children and stuff. How could you, like, defend him? Like, shouldn't he just be put out? So I think it raises a lot of really cool issues for Moon Knight, and I think that's really good. I felt it could have been done a bit more, because I found that very interesting with Deadpool. But at the same token, I think Deadpool was written very, very well. Sometimes his comments, for me, his voicings didn't really stick. It seemed like Hurwitz was kind of forcing some jokes a little. Because you've read a lot of Deadpool, right? I mean, do you have any favourite writers for Deadpool?
Yeah, so with Deadpool, I've been kind of reading the complete collection by, is it Daniel Way?
Daniel Way, yeah.
Yeah, and I really enjoyed that. And I think it's kind of like what you were saying, the writer here, he was kind of trying to copy that.
Yes,
and it's obvious that he's brought on to do Moon Knight. He's not a Deadpool writer.
Yes.
So sometimes it felt like he was very much trying to copy and emulate Deadpool, and it didn't exactly 100% stick. But overall, I liked the writing for Deadpool, what he was supposed to be doing, not so much like his dialogue.
Yeah.
Because sometimes like the jokes didn't work and didn't really feel like the Deadpool we should be getting.
Yeah.
But like you were saying, I liked how they use him here as kind of like a catalyst for Marc to think like, why am I going soft?
Yes.
Does this guy deserve to die? And it brings up some pretty interesting questions for Marc about Moon Knight and what's going on in his head. So I think Deadpool is used well here in terms of story.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, because basically it brings conflict to Moon Knight in the form of Deadpool, not only physically, but him with his own values. Because, as you say, he's trying to put that life behind him, like that Merc life behind him. But at the same token, how can he justify not killing Goncharenko? So I think in a very simple concept by Gregg Hurwitz, he's used it in this. I just feel maybe, I keep on complaining about how stories are stretched over multiple parts when they can be really downsized. But I think here it would be really cool to flesh it out. I'd like to learn more about it, get more into it. I certainly enjoyed the 2 parts as well, but I just feel that he's it's a tip of the iceberg with this sort of stuff. But having said that, how far do you take it? I mean, the idea that Hurwitz had about this Goncharenko mogul, being a terrible person, but being someone being hired to kill him, how far do you take it? I mean, it's only got a certain shelf life, doesn't it? You can't really stretch it too much further. I don't know. I just found it a very strong idea, but I just wanted to see more. Look, I'm just trying to find out an example of what I found some of the dialogue for Deadpool, for me, that didn't seem to work. Let's see, just quickly, I'm just...
while you're looking for that, I guess I'll comment off
Yes.
what you were saying. With that, I think maybe they could have stretched it to 3 issues, but like you were saying, it's like, how far do you stretch it?
Yeah.
Because if you make it longer, maybe fans will be like, well, this was a waste of 3 issues.
Yeah, exactly.
I want to get back to meat. But on the other hand, you were saying there's so much potential here, and for the most part, they execute well on it. But they could definitely stretch this idea out. They would have to add another thing or 2. But Deadpool really worked well with Moon Knight and them going up against each other. So yeah, they definitely could have done maybe 1 more issue, stretch out the run a little bit.
Yeah, I'm thinking maybe, not to, try and change the whole thing, but like if it wasn't just as simple as this Goncharenko guy being in hospital and dying, and maybe if it was something else, like you can take that whole concept a bit further, which can be explored further, because I think by Hurwitz writing Goncharenko like he did, there's pretty much a dead end coming. You know what I mean? It's not you can't really stretch it further. And as you mentioned, you don't want to just pad it out just for padding's sake, because then comic fans will jump onto that. So there's one thing here. I'm just going to read it. It's that thing when he first sees Moon Knight. And he goes, oh, okay, impressive. I got to admit, that flippy little Jackie Chan move, it made me all tingly in my special place. That kind of me was a little awkward writing. It's like, that's just trying a little too hard to, But, for most of the part as well, he does write Deadpool pretty well, I think so. What did you think of... I'm trying to lead you here to a look. Because I just come out with it. At the beginning, I thought he was a bit too Tony Starky, and maybe a little bit of the bat-eared fellow.
Yes, that bat-eared fellow. Yep.
Yeah, because with Samuels, he was very much it was very much tech heavy, and then you had him doing the whole Tony Stark thing in 2008 Iron Man movie where he's like stretched out and the parts come, they come to fit him out with his costume. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's not that it's a bad thing, but it's kind of like, it just seems borrowed. You know what I mean? It's too on the nose for me.
Yeah, I kind of felt that the way he was addressing Samuels in the beginning. Yeah, I kind of felt like, this is a little bit different. But now that you mention it, I can kind of see where you got the idea from.
Yeah. Yeah, I really like the what I found there, and there is a bit, obviously with Deadpool, there is a bit of humour in here, and I love the introduction to Deadpool in the sense that they're scanning the hospital, Moon Knight and Samuels, and there's this unidentified kind of pixelated image, and then they kind of zoom in, and it's actually a slice of pizza, and I thought that was a stroke of really genius. That kind of encapsulates Deadpool. I thought that was cool, and the blood smeared hand on the front door. It's like, you've got comedy and you've got friggin' violence. That's Deadpool.
To a T.
Yeah. I really liked also. I don't know. Some people might say the moon glider. I think that was pretty cool. I would have loved to see Moon Knight. I know it's a bit Green Goblin-y, but I kind of like it.
Yeah, no, I liked how it was used here, especially towards the end when he's just kind of hovering outside the window of the hospital and kind of just watching everything. Yeah, that was pretty cool.
Yeah, because it's quite a big apparatus, but it's cool. Like when a couple of pages before that, when after his fever dream, you see him shooting away in it, and it actually was quite cool there as well. Again, sorry, listeners. I'm just throwing up stuff to show Austen and our Patronis. It's also good as well if we go back to art. I like how Eng Huat still has got, because Marc Spector's got that scar across his eye, over his left eye. So that's good. Nice little bit of detail there. Some of the things though, but there's only so much. How else can you explain it in visuals? I found this one pretty funny. There's a panel of Clarissa over there. Austen, you see that with a needle, and you see just kind of dangling there is a large tag, potassium chloride, just to let you know that it is poison, and she's not a nurse. But there's no really, I think there's no other way to kind of really do that. So,
I really enjoy, I'm looking right now at mine, I'm looking at the fight scene between Deadpool and Moon Knight at the carnival. Mm-hmm. Where they're in the mirror house.
Yeah, that's fun.
Visually, it looks really good. Then I'm looking at the larger panel that you showed earlier, Moon Knight walking away from the funhouse. Yeah. Very cool looking. When the glass is shattered and you see multiple angles of Moon Knight in the broken glass and there's blood splattered. Very cool. Oh, there's a couple with Deadpool and Moon Knight fighting, and it's shown by the glass.
Yes. I think actually going a couple of steps before that, Austen, I think the big amped moment for this comic was when Moon Knight figures out or is told that Deadpool's got a healing factor. So he can just go to town on Deadpool, and he goes game on. Then he's been almost as if he's been holding back on Deadpool because he doesn't want to totally hurt him. But now it's oh, okay, well this guy, he's going to recover anyway. I am just going to friggin' release on him.
I really like that part too.
Yeah.
Another part I liked was when both Moon Knight and Deadpool go, "What? I didn't say anything."
Yeah. Yes.
They're both talking to themselves.
That was a nice little nod to them being the parallels, the similarities of them both being kind of affected mentally, having mental issues. So, I thought that was really cool as well. Another bit of, if we're just going through some scenes, what I found comedic and I found really funny was not only when Deadpool kicks Moon Knight off the top of the rooftop, which was pretty funny, but then you get this kind of extended scene of Moon Knight falling, just his trying to recover himself. So he falls down, he shoots some grappling hooks. They don't grappling hooks or parachutes, they don't seem to work. He kind of lands on a roller coaster. It starts moving. He kind of follows that, kind of holding onto it. It drags him along a bit. He kind of flips up. He kind of trips. Then he falls into a ball, like a pit of balls. So yeah, I found that I don't know, just because it could have been done just really quickly, but by extending it a little, it kind of made it a little funnier because it focused on his inadequacy of trying to fall.
Like a cartoon of a character just falling, go bang, 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 and fall to the ground, hitting everything in its path.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
Deadpool falling after him with a red parachute, and giving himself a 9.5 out of 10 as a score was pretty good.
Yeah, and then you don't see much of him this issue, but you see Khonshu as well. You see and it's only very fleeting that he actually, and he comes in, chimes in with a bit of, you're going to be beaten by a guy in red. I don't understand that, but maybe just the fact that he's not white, I don't know, but he's trying to heckle Moon Knight. So Moon Knight's just talking to him, will you shut up? And then Deadpool's, will you shut up? And that's when they say together. It's pretty cool. I don't know. Is there anything else here that you would like to pick up? As far as references to other runs, I can't really place any. Deadpool doesn't mention anything on his side of comic books. I don't think it ties into his title at all. It's just a nice little cameo for cameo's sake. Clarissa and Goncharenko, I think they're one and dones as well. The only continuation is I'm seeing the Carbonadium armor, the Vengeance of the Moon Knight, that kind of thing. As well. Any other themes there?
I guess the only thing is I'm kind of looking through to see any ties to Deadpool or anything. Mm-hmm. I think it's mostly a cameo, and there's no written ties to any of the Deadpool stuff. Something I thought was kind of, I guess it worked, was kind of a visual tie to some of the Deadpool run was a good or bad. People debate about that, but in the hospital, I think it's before they fight. No, it's right after they fight. Yeah, a big-breasted nurse comes in and she distracts Deadpool for a little bit, enough for Moon Knight to get a punch on him. Yes, and that is kind of a throw into Deadpool's comics because either good or bad, the artists tend to draw women in this exact way. Yeah. And I don't think this is really representative of how Moon Knight does it. Typically, women are much more realistically drawn in Moon Knight, but this nurse definitely looks like the over-exaggerated, hotness of a lot of the women in Deadpool's run. So I guess that's into Deadpool.
Yeah, that's a good pickup because that was so random, wasn't it? And it is very... Yeah, it's very Deadpool-centric, isn't it? Having these kind of busty, short skirt nurse just come out of nowhere, and she's got a pizza and beers as well. I don't know if he's ordered a stripper or something. I don't know, but again,
odd. He imagined her because that does not make sense. I did not notice the pizza and beer actually. Yeah.
It could be his imagination, totally. But this is where, Yeah, I mean, this is where I think, because I love the Joe Kelly, Jerry Duggan runs of Deadpool, and even the Brian Posehn as well. I think he does Deadpool really well. But even here, his dialogue, this is what I thought was Deadpool. You know, as he's stumbling backwards after being punched by Moon Knight, looking at the nurse still, just going, it was worth it, it was worth it, it was worth it. And then, like, he crashes through the window. It's like, of course, glass. You know, that sort of cynical... I think that really rings true of Deadpool, just that little thing. So, yeah, so Hurwitz, he can do it, but, yeah, it's just a bit hit and miss sometimes. But, yeah, no, that's a good point. Yeah.
It definitely was a hit there.
Yeah. Yeah,
definitely do it well sometimes in terms of dialogue. But, yeah, no, I thought he did a pretty solid job. Yeah,
for sure. I don't know, just finally, I just wanted to look, there's not too much here, I just wanted to call out as well, actually this might be a reference to another run, because we don't see it that often. I love seeing Moon Knight with his sword, with his Khonshu sword. You don't see that often, but it's stated in the handbook of the Marvel Universe as well. Moon Knight is a master of all forms, apparently, of martial arts and all forms of weapon combat. So he is actually a brilliant swordsman as well. That harks back to there's a couple of Mensch Sienkiewicz issues. I think it was in the Hulk magazines when Moon Knight fights Lupinar, apparently he's a really good swordsman as well. And anyway, Moon Knight gets to showcase his swordsman prowess there. So it's good that we see him here. Again, another little... It's in the future for this run, but Max Bemis actually resurrects that notion as well when Moon Knight has his kind of wraparound sword around his belt. I think, again... this is up for a FAF award. I think this is maybe issue 190... 5, 6, or 7, I think, with the Collective. When Moon Knight fights the Collective, he's got like a sword as well. So it's every now and again you see him with a sword, and I like it. I like to see more of it. And just finally as well, I love how Moon Knight beats Deadpool. Look, I love Deadpool as well, Austen, but Moon Knight beating Deadpool, you can chalk that up to a massive victory.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I like Deadpool, but sometimes he just kind of wins just because he's Deadpool. So it's nice to see Moon Knight get a win in towards the end.
Yeah.
In their fights, they kind of like two smaller fights. Both of them are done well.
Yeah, they are. I mean, Deadpool is pretty hard to kill. I mean, not that Moon Knight was trying to kill him, but at least he incapacitated him. Because Deadpool, healing factor, a lot stronger than Wolverine's healing factor. He's literally unkillable, Deadpool. So if you can get the better of him, and he's a master assassin and proficient with weapons and such. So if you can get the better of him, it's got to say something about Moon Knight, I think. So pretty proud as a Moon Knight fan to see that he beat Deadpool.
Yep. A nice small victory.
Exactly. We'll take them when we can get them. So. All right, Austen. Well, if there is not anything else, would you like to give this a rating?
Sure. I'll have you go first since I'm not 100%. I don't know this system super well, but first of it, I'll go. Think about it.
Okay, so I'm thinking. I'm basically just gonna think. Out of 10, I'd give this a because I think, just in summary, because I think I really enjoyed it. If anything, I thought it was too short, but having said that, I understand that the idea probably can't be stretched any further. I enjoyed it. The voicings of Deadpool, a little bit off here. Moon Knight, I thought was pretty cool, actually, throughout. I was pretty happy with the way Moon Knight was depicted. I'd give this a solid 7, I'd say. 7 out of 10, which equates to, that's just under a last quarter moon. So that would be a waning gibbous. So there you go, Looney. A waning gibbous, about a 7 out of 10, I think, for both of these issues. How about yourself, Austen?
Okay, so I really enjoyed the artwork. I really enjoyed the stylization. Even if the faces looked a little off, it was the artist's unique interpretation of how he wants to do faces, and at least they're going with a unique stylization of the art, and the color was fantastic, and I like they did something different with that instead of just something plain superhero style comics that just looks fine, but it's not unique at all. And the write-in was pretty solid info, like you said, not a ton of meat to it, not a ton of dialogue or like internal narration. So even though it's still a short run of 2 issues, I breezed through it really, really quickly. But I guess it's kind of like a fun little side quest, and I enjoyed it. And for Deadpool fans, it's kind of like a small cameo, but you get to see him fight Moon Knight, which is fun. And there's not a lot to Deadpool's story, but Deadpool really helps Moon Knight's story in this. So overall, I thought it was a pretty fun, short couple issues. So 7.5 out of 10.
Oh, so I'm putting you down for that's a last quarter, i.e. a 3/4 moon. Yeah, so a last quarter from... Now, that's pretty cool. Yeah, I like how you describe it. It is like a side quest, isn't it? Because, like, it's not like, issues down the run, they're going to reference this. This doesn't have any ramifications for anything. It's kind of neatly tied up. It has its own kind of little story in it, and that's about it. So, cool. So there you go. Looney 7 from myself, a waning Gibbous, and a last quarter 7.5 from Austen Sprake. So awesome stuff. Thank you, Austen. Before we wrap up though, Austen, we do have some Mooney missives, also known as night lines. I think I saw that in one of the 90s comics. I thought that was pretty cool. So we have some feedback. I haven't discussed this with you, Austen, but would you like to perhaps read the first one on Twitter?
Sure. So this is at Angle Time, Power of Chad. I enjoyed the back issues. The whole moral ambiguity, shuck and jive was pretty heavy-handed, but the action is pretty intense. We're also reminded that Marc is a top-notch with most forms of weaponry, which I think you brought up, which is a fair point, including poker tables as well as swordsmanship enough to take weight. I also agree with him. I like the swordplay used here. Yeah. That aside, the fact that Marc was going to let the cronies go after a light beating, only flip back after he noticed a handprint across the kid's face, very on brand for him. And aside, why is it that the nurse plot character looks like Hillary Clinton?
Wow,
I didn't see that.
That's a pickup, but yeah.
Marc beating Deadpool was pretty nice, considering how often they are compared, and the last frames tie everything together nicely. Not the best in art, but a far cry from negative, and he also gives it a 7.5 out of 10.
Nice one. Well, thank you, Chad. The power of Chad. One of our valued loonies. He's jumped on the show a couple of times as well. Austen, he's pretty cool. He's a great little review there. 7.5. Thinking along the same lines as us as well. The only differing thing about not the best in art, but he said not a far cry from negative, so that's cool. I enjoyed it, but I enjoyed it. It was pretty cool. Hillary Clinton, I'm not too sure.
Yeah, I don't know about that, but it's a funny observation.
It's a funny observation. So, no, cheers, Chad. So, just going on to that. Now, this isn't about these issues. It's just some feedback for our previous episode. So, on YouTube, a big shout out to CMK72, beep, boop, beep, boop, boop, Chris Kelly. And this is on episode 144, just our episode gone. He says, welcome back, Ray. Thank you, Chris. So great having you back in the saddle where you belong. I admit I was a little concerned. I'm glad to hear everything is fine with you. What a classic issue from Volume 1. This is issue 13, I think, from Volume 1 with Doug Mensch that we covered. I agree with both your analysis. Nothing earth-shattering here, but just a fun, solid issue that floods back a lot of nostalgia. So, Austen, this was Moon Knight actually teaming up with Deadpool. No, Daredevil, sorry. So that's another team-up that he did back in the 80s. Speaking of the great Sienkiewicz, what do you think the chances of him returning to kick off Moon Knight's relaunch? Ooh, how poetic would that be? I would love to see his take on Moon Knight now that he's grown so much as an artist. Thanks. Yeah, Chris, that's an awesome idea. The Maestro back, Austen. I don't know about you. Do you I mean, I guess it's unfair to say if you like his art or not. Do you like it?
No, I do.
Yeah.
And that would be kind of interesting to bring him back. I
think there's a lot of opportunities for the older guard to actually still come back. I mean, you see the likes of Peter David still going around. Chris Claremont actually did an issue here and there. Rob Liefeld actually came back for Major X. So to have Bill Sienkiewicz for Moon Knight, of all things, would be an absolute... I think I'd love that, actually. I think that'd be really cool. And definitely, he's progressed, 40 years since he penciled Moon Knight. Jeez, different as an artist, I would imagine. So, now thank you very much, Chris. That's a great thought. And also another one from Judas Hegarty. I believe that's Jordan, one of our recent patroonies. Hello, Jordan. Unless you have a brother called Judas. This is on episode 144, and he's just quoted from our opening theme. It's all in your head. It certainly is, Jordan. It's in my head. It's in Austen's head. It's in all of our heads. Big thanks to Deleta and Noel Looney Tunes for giving us that tune as well. Very memorable. Thank you all for the feedback. Austen, I would like to thank you so much for coming onto the show. It's been an absolute pleasure chatting with you about Moon Knight. You're more than welcome to come back any time to review any other comics or maybe TV shows.
Oh, sure. Oh yeah, hopefully a TV show. Yeah. No, anytime you need someone else, just let me know. I'd love to come back on. I don't get to talk about Moon Knight enough on our show, so I'm very, very glad to come on here. Thank you for having me on to talk about Moon Knight.
Oh, very fantastic. Fun. Oh, no, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you. Now, before we let you go as well for our spectacle, Austen, where can Loonies find you, contact you, or where can they find Trash Talk Podcast?
Yeah, so Trash Talk Podcast, it's on most podcast services, so it's on Podbean, iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, iHeartRadio. It's on most. And like I said before, we cover movies, comic books, TV shows, and video games, all while having a drink. We have multiple fun segments within it. And sometimes we get guest people on. So recently we had an actress on from one of Tommy Wiseau who did The Room.
Oh, wow.
He had this really horrible TV show he made. We got one of the actresses to come on and talk about what it's like to work with Tommy Wiseau.
Oh, wow.
Which was kind of fun. So sometimes we get like guest directors or actresses or actors on. We're on most podcast services. And if you go and find Trash Talk Podcast on Instagram, Facebook, or Twitter, I update when podcast episodes come out and also what our comic book or game of the week is after a couple of days after the podcast comes out. So check us out there.
Fantastic. And final question for you, Austen, as well. What is your tipple? What is your poison when you do have a few drinks?
So recently I've been getting into like this honey gin. That's been really good.
Nice.
Not cheap though. It's like $50 for a small bottle. So I don't know if I can keep doing that. But usually when we drink during the podcast, we have a couple beers, and we've been kind of changing it up because we've been doing the podcast long enough that we've been getting sick of our traditional brews. But we usually have a couple drinks, and sometimes I'll mix it up and make like a mixed cocktail.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, no, we have fun. We try to always like crack a beer at the beginning, right next to the microphone.
Nice.
We have fun.
How many are you on the podcast?
Episodes?
Oh no, how many hosts have you got?
Oh, so it's me and my co-host Travis. It's usually just the two of us, but then sometimes we bring in we have one or two other like guest hosts we bring on if we want to have a discussion with 3 or 4 people. Then occasionally, like I said, we'll bring in like an actor or someone who is on the movie or TV show that we're talking about.
Fantastic. Well, there you go. Check it out, Looney listeners. Definitely worth a listen. I'm going to check out also the coming up as well, the Goon review that they do. But if you like a tipple yourself, crack a tinny open and listen along to them. It should be great. Okay, also just another spectacle as well. I just want to give a little shameless plug to myself. I'll be appearing on the 20th Century Geek podcast with the host Scott Weatherly, and we do a retrospective on all the 4 Indiana Jones films. I just couldn't pass this up. Scott asked me if I wanted to hop on and chat about it. Had a ton of fun. So that's coming out very soon. Just keep your eyes peeled on your catches for when that drops. I believe it's coming very shortly as well. As well as that, check out my other podcast as well, Last Sons of Krypton, the Superman podcast with Connor. We do that fortnightly, so I think we've got another episode racked up towards the end of the week we'll be doing, so something we'll be spitting out on the other side of the weekend. Next phase, Loonies. It is a waning gibbous. So yes, we have an Isla Ra sessions. This is where I do a one-on-one chat with someone. We go through their 4 desert island books, and I've got the privilege of having stand-up comedian and podcaster himself, Matt Kona, on. So that should be a blast. I can't wait. I've already read his books. They're crackers. I can't wait to chat through them with Matt. So that'll be cool. Finally, as well, as mentioned, we've got a Patreon page. Please consider joining if you can. Have a look and see what the incentives are. Try to make it fun there. Hopefully we can expand the show. Patreon.com/ITK Moon Knight. Again, we're sponsored by Hello Headphones. Use the code ITK Moon Knight and to get 10% off their online store. We're also affiliate members to Amazon and Entertainment Earth. Check out the links in the show notes. Any purchases you make through those links will help out the show as well. And finally, we are part of the Collective, just a bunch of really cool podcasts. We all kind of like comic book characters and geek culture and stuff, so check out the likes of Capes and Lunatics Sidekicks, which have podcasts on Spider-Man, Deadpool, or Quasar. There's also Inner Demons. I just listened to the latest episode 51. Big shout out to Brian Biggie's doing great work there, a Ghost Rider podcast, and Resurrections by Al, their Thanos and Adam Warlock podcast. Finally, you can find us many ways. Email itkmoonnight@gmail.com, or check us out on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, Discord, Get Vocal. We've got some websites. Patreon, as I mentioned, or Podchaser. Podchaser is pretty cool. I've been using that lately because I've been working from home. Check them all out. Anyway, that's it, Loonies. We are going out of here. A big thanks once again, Austen. Thank you so much. Hope you have a good day for the rest of the day. It's nice and early for you. You've got the whole day ahead of you.
Oh yeah, no, I'm excited now because I'm probably not going to go to bed tonight. I have so much free time now. Nowadays, I don't work. I just sleep until like 12. So now I got so much more time. So glad to be up and do a fun podcast episode. And then I got so much I can do today. So thank you very much.
No worries at all. Thank you. And as we always say, Loonies, may Khonshu watch over the denizens of the night. Catch up.
Moon Knight and affiliated characters, stories and events are properties of Marvel Characters Incorporated. Materials used and discussed within the podcast are intended for critique and review purposes only under the fair dealing concept of the current Copyright Act. The views, information or opinions expressed during the podcast are solely those of the individuals involved and do not necessarily represent those of the copyright owners.